I'm in the goddamn club, aren't I? Hello, it's Alex and welcome to Hey Little Thrifter. If you didn't get the reference, then you're clearly not in the club and you should go watch the Monster Squad as soon as possible. Today I am doing my wrap-up for Halfoweenathon. This was a readathon that just took place. It was hosted by the awesome Spinebreakers. I will leave their channel linked below. And yeah, it was just a week-long readathon to read some spooky books and celebrate being halfway to Halloween. There were 5 challenges and the first one was to read a book with black or orange on the cover. I went with The Boyfriend by R.L. Stine, and this one is about a teenage girl called Joanna who is dating this kind of bad boy called Dex, but she decides she's kind of over him, but she still kind of strings him along a bit and doesn't break up with him while she starts dating this other guy called Shep. But she goes out with Dex another time and he falls off a cliff and dies, and she runs off because she just can't handle it. And she just wants to get back to normal and forget all about Dex because really she didn't care about him at all. But it seems that Dex is back from the dead and is calling her and stalking her. This one was really fun. It was, yeah, your classic R.L. Stine, lots of cliffhangers at the end of chapters. I did guess where the story was going, which I might not have done when I read this when I was younger, so I guess that spoiled a little bit for me, but it was still really fun and I rated it 3 stars. Challenge 2 was to read a spooky book and then watch the movie adaptation, and I went with Summer of Fear by Lois Duncan. This was my first Lois Duncan and I really enjoyed it, so I'm really looking forward to reading more by her. I know she's kind of a classic within the teen horror subgenre, and this one I had already seen the film adaptation for, which was really good. It's directed by Wes Craven and stars Linda Blair, and yeah, I watched that I think last year and really enjoyed it, and I did like the book a little bit more actually, so I would still recommend checking both out. The story is about a teenage girl called Rachel. She has a pretty nice life. She lives with her family and she's got a boyfriend that lives next door, but there is a tragedy in the family when her aunt and uncle die in a car crash, and their daughter, Rachel's cousin, comes to live with her and her family. Everyone else seems to have fallen in love with her cousin Julia, but Rachel has other ideas and doesn't get along with Julia at all, even though she does try to at the beginning. But Julia steals Rachel's boyfriend, and there are some other strange and awful things that happen, and every time Rachel complains about it to her parents or her friends, they just think she's being a brat and that she needs to cut Julia a break since she has just lost her parents. But yeah, things go from there and Rachel is convinced that Julia is a witch and is using witchcraft against her. This was a really good read, I really enjoyed it, I loved the characters and the story, and yeah, I ended up rating this one 4 stars. Challenge number 3 was to read a book involving something supernatural, and I read Remember Me by Christopher Pike. This is about another teenage girl. This one is called Shari, and she and her friends are at a party, and at some point she ends up going out onto the balcony. Next thing you know, she is no longer on the balcony and she is dead. And initially everyone thinks it must be a suicide, but it turns out that's not the case. And the supernatural element is that Shari is actually still kind of around in some kind of ghost limbo, and she is able to still be on Earth and look into exactly what happened and who killed her. This was pretty fun. I enjoyed his writing and the characters. It does get pretty bonkers, which I know Christopher Pike is known for, and yeah, this one is definitely no exception. I think the times that he goes a bit too far into religion and what may or may not happen after we die, I wasn't really into that as much. The other thing I didn't like as much was that, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but the kind of reason behind things and the ending was kind of only like half thought out. It felt like there was definitely a big element of that just didn't make any sense. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing, but Overall, it was still a really good read and I rated it 3.5 stars. Challenge number 4 was to read a book with a spooky word in the title, and I read The Dream Stalker by Barbara Steiner. Initially I thought this was going to be some kind of A Nightmare on Elm Street ripoff, and yeah, other than the kind of dream element and people being killed, it wasn't really. So that was nice that it did something different with that kind of premise. This one is about teenage girl Karen, who has never been able to remember her dreams, and she and some of her other classmates start taking this psychology class at school, and she all of a sudden has this really vivid dream where one of her classmates dies, and the next morning she finds out that that person has died in the exact same way as she dreamt it. So she's a little freaked out by that, understandably, and it happens to her again a couple of times with people dying and she having dreamt the exact scenario before it happens. We also have a few sections here that are from the point of view of the person making all of this happen, and of course we don't know who that is until the end, and that did keep me guessing, and I did like the story overall. I thought it was a pretty interesting concept and it was a good read. There was a lot of hot chocolate in this book, like every other page someone's having a cup of hot chocolate. That stood out to me for some reason. But yeah, this was a fun one and I rated it 3.5 stars. So that was it for the reading challenges, and I'm pretty pleased I managed to get through 4 books within the week. I am definitely glad I picked short ones because yeah, there's no way I would have read any more than I did. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with what I read and I enjoyed them all, so that's awesome. Challenge number 5 is to dress up in a Halloween costume or to decorate your space with some Halloween decorations, and yeah, I ended up being lazy and not getting out any Halloween decorations, but I did end up putting a little costume together. And for the uninitiated, I am Rudy from the Monster Squad. It's one of the best films and I feel like I've talked about it a few times recently in videos, so yeah, that influenced my decision and it's a pretty easy costume to put together, so that worked out well. So that was it for Halfoweenathon. Thank you again to Spinebreakers for hosting this. As always, it was a ton of fun and I'm really glad I got a chance to take part. If you took part in Halfoweenathon, I would love to hear what you read and if you had any favourites. Thank you ever so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video.